don't be afraid. Those who really want it know they really want it. I think it's pretty black and white. Don't let fear or anxiety stop you from doing it. So you don't have to be, this crazy salesperson, type A entrepreneur. Find the right niche and the right partners to work with.
Welcome, everyone, to the Road Less Traveled Show. This is a show about people that were successful in a previous career and left that career to go down a different path. I'm your co-host, Richard Coyne.
And I'm your co-host, Bill Zahller.
On today's show, we are so pleased to have Jack Krupey with us. Jack, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Jack. Well, thanks for being on the Road Less Traveled Show. We certainly appreciate it. Can you tell us a little bit about your background? What was your former career and how long you're in that line of work?
Sure. So I've actually done this twice. I actually got out of college shortly after the dot-com crisis, and originally thought I was going to be in the computer consulting space. But 2001, 2002, the jobs in that area were not what they were a couple of years before. So I transitioned out in my early 20s into a full-time real estate career, more traditional, flipping houses, wholesaling, buying REOs, property management. And then after 2008. Made a transition into Wall Street. They needed real estate entrepreneurs that knew how to handle all that type of investments, but from the banking side. So built a career buying non-conforming mortgages from shortly after 2008 through 2019, and was a partner in a private equity fund that bought 30,000 loans. So it was a great run, but as an entrepreneurial type person, I sort of built myself into a job that eventually I didn't really like very much, was fortunate to be able to make a deal. I left as an employee in 2019 and then got bought out in early 2021. So it was a very stressful time, and even someone like me who has an entrepreneurial spirit. Built myself a bit of a trap, and it was very, very stressful to leave, even though I'd done it before, to leave, the safety of having a solid monthly base and even an ownership position in the firm that was paying significant money. But, after taxes, it actually wasn't as significant. And now that I'm on the other side, certainly the grass was greener for me.
Oh, excellent. Well, what path did you transition to then, Jack? What are you going down now?
So I left in 2019, and I had been personally investing in syndication deals, primarily multifamily and a few other similar asset classes, mobile home and storage. And I started just investing passively in that because I was living and working in New York City, and my overall tax rate was just above 50%. So I needed investments that were generating cash flow, but also weren't going to get taxed at the highest tax bracket. So I started investing in that personally. When I left and got bought out, I had to make a decision on what I was going to do for investing my own money. And a bulk of my money was going to be invested in syndications. So I actually built a company around it. And one of my challenges was I had to decide which deal to invest in. Do I want to be in Texas? Do I want to be in Atlanta? Do I want to be in Florida? And I didn't have unlimited money by any means. So I had to make key decisions. And these are usually $50,000 to $100,000 investments. So I actually created a fund that was diversified, where our fund is actually in 30 different syndication deals. And I offer that to my base of investors. And I was never able to take money before because I was always in Wall Street with big pension fund money. And for years, I had investors who wanted to invest with me, and we just didn't have an outlet. So I started my own Regulation D 506C fund, and we work with groups similar to yours, where as interesting deals come up, we allocate capital across multiple operators in multiple markets. So to date, our fund is in 34 different properties, with 12 different operators across primarily the Southeast and the Sun Belt. And it's been a great run the last few years.
Excellent. Awesome. Yeah. Very interesting, Jack. That's pretty cool. So, Jack, as you look back to your, actually, I was in IT consulting early on, and I got into it a little before you did. So I had to establish by the time the .com blow up happened. But anyway, so you were in that field, and then obviously you moved over into doing a lot of real estate entrepreneurial stuff, and I think you were even a real estate broker at one point, right? Yeah.
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Yeah, did pretty much everything in the traditional real estate realm, from buying 2-family houses, buying single family, wholesaling, buying short sales, REO, brokering,
Yeah.
property management, which was a very difficult. It's a thankless and difficult
Sure.
difficult role.
Yeah. So in your past, before what you do now, can you think of a funny story somewhere along the way that just was just unbelievable to you? Something you can share.
Sure. So, I'm a working class kid from New Jersey, and always been more of an entrepreneur. And then I sort of backed into this, Wall Street, New York City, private equity role, where there's more of a blue-blooded culture, people that went to Ivy League schools, people that are just, just kind of a different way of approaching life. But I'm also very much into points and miles. To me, any good entrepreneur, you're using your Amex and your Chase points, and you fly business class or first class. So I took my first class flight. I flew from New York to Hong Kong in first class in Cathay Pacific. And it was super exciting, and I didn't pay for it. It was all using like American Express points. Yeah. And I come back and I'm all excited. I had caviar for the first time on an airplane. Okay. And, I described to them, I go, the weird thing was they gave me a plastic spoon. I go, maybe it was the airport security. And they're like, oh, that was a mother of pearl spoon. And I had no clue you needed a special spoon for caviar. And, everyone else seemed to be, well aware of how to eat caviar. But, me being from, just not a Wall Street guy backing into that, it was, it was kind of a epitome of being the fish out of water.
Nice. I had an experience one time where I was flying to Europe, and unfortunately, I was on a company paid coach ticket, but I managed to get an upgrade to business class on Delta, and that was very nice. So I can imagine flying first class was fantastic that far. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the best parts about being an entrepreneur is being able to earn those miles on expenses you're going to have anyway. Mm-hmm. And I certainly. I'm a bit of an evangelist for that. So if anyone has questions about points or miles, especially if you're spending a lot of money on your business, whether it's advertising or just even repairs and maintenance, you should be maximizing your points and miles earning.
Right. Makes sense. Yeah.
Well, Jack, what was a deciding factor for you to leave Wall Street as you kind of transitioned out? I know you said you had the entrepreneurial spirit kind of always burned in the background. Was there one deciding thing, or just kind of over time you decided you weren't happy in that job and wanted to branch out and do what you're currently doing with the alternative investments?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it really became my health and my mental health. There was, just not having the freedom and the flexibility. Having run my own business for a while, then going back to a corporate role. Having to get vacation days approved. Even supposedly having 4 weeks of vacation, but not kind of even maybe getting into having some guilt for taking the vacation days, not having control. I mean, the stress was getting to me and not being able to have control of my life. There was a point I was getting a TMJ in my jaw, where just like not being able to open my mouth all the way, just because of just some of the stress of dealing with things. So it accrued over a bit of time, but I think I kind of knew my days were numbered pretty early on, but at the same time had a group of business partners, and we sold the majority of our company to a private equity fund. So I had obligations to fill, but I was it was something I knew I needed to plan for the future and structure it. And as I'd said earlier, it's even when you have an entrepreneurial spirit, sometimes you could get comfortable. And I was surprised at how much stress I had, even of the thought of going back into a full entrepreneurial role where you really have to eat what you kill. And even for someone like me who had already done it, sometimes you can get comfortable. So for those who had never done it before, I could understand the stress and anxiety of making the jump. And what I could say is it's as long as you have the personality type for it and you know what you're getting into, it's well worth it. It's well worth it when you actually execute on it and you structure it the right way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I left the W-2 world 2 years ago, and it's certainly stressful going out of and away from, like you said, away from that the paycheck on a monthly regular basis into the eat what you kill mode. And it is stressful, but at the same point in time, it's so rewarding. just the freedom you have, the ability to really control your own destiny, and it's fantastic. So Jack, when you started JKM, that's how you say it, right? JKM, your firm?
We say it either way, either or JKM Investments. If I'm just trying to,
okay,
yeah.
Okay, JKM. When you started JKM Investments, were there some obstacles you initially encountered along the way?
Probably the biggest thing was needing to focus on building my own brand again. I'm 42 and, I use social media, but I'm not one of those people that's constantly, on their phone talking into the camera every single day. And, I had raised a little bit of private money when I was, in my early 20s, just as more of like hard money loans for individual houses. But since the Jobs Act in 2012, I'd been in, more Wall Street private equity roles for the past 10 years. So I really had not built my brand as someone who, is a fund manager. I already had the money. I was doing, hundreds of millions of dollars of deals, over 3 billion in purchases, but was really starting from scratch. So, to really build out my brand and really communicate what the vision was, it was a bit of a pivot. So, the first year and a half, even people I'd done a lot of business with just maybe saw me in a different role. So it was really about just building that brand. The easy part was finding deals because I already had, I was already investing in these deals myself already. So we had the deal flow, but figuring out the right way to get my message, out to the community. And, at first was doing a lot more one-on-one, lunches, coffees is the best we could do during COVID. But, as we've, gotten our sea legs, if you will, the power of these types of one-to-many marketing, between podcasts and social media, love attending live events again too. So, for me, it's been just about the efficient way to get that message out there and, kind of just embracing the way things are in 2022 and, the one-to-many marketing and really connecting with our core audience. And, as I've connected, I love having these types of conversations with like-minded entrepreneurs that doesn't feel like work at all to me. Right. So, that was the big thing to sum it all up was just making sure we just got ourselves out there more and to as many people as we could.
Right. And as much as Zoom has been utilized in the last, 2 years, still I don't think anything replaces actually, in-person meetings where you can really get a better feel, for talking to people, and just that's how we're, for millennia designed to interact versus over Zoom.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've been to two multifamily / syndication events. I was out in LA in January at the Intelligent Investor. I was at Best Ever in Denver in February. I'm in 2 masterminds now. So it seems like every couple of weeks I'm going somewhere, and it's tiring just with the travel, but I love it. Once I'm there, once I'm chatting with people, it's, it's inspiring, and I always learn something and meet new people, and, nothing substitutes, there's no substitute for just pressing the flesh and meeting people at a live event.
Absolutely. Yeah. Joe puts on a great event, the Best Ever conferences. Yeah. We've been to several of them, and always enjoy that crowd, high quality group. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jack, what was one of your first one of your first victories in your new transition? Can you think back to anything that you decided, oh, this is definitely the right path I'm on?
Yeah. I had a key client. So when I left the corporate world, I did have a consulting gig with a group that was, heavily in the mortgage business and, the non-performing loan business really, 2008, it was somewhat of a new industry. There was just tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of loans in foreclosure that weren't 2 or 3 years ago. And, as that business has matured, one of my clients in the mortgage business was also looking for other ways to deploy capital. So, a group that has hundreds of millions under management also is looking to make a pivot to multifamily. And they looked at my fund as research and development. So they wrote a 7 fund, as a really a test case, just to see the types of deal flow. And it was they're not just a normal investor that's, they're passive, but they did it for the sake of understanding the market with the ability to potentially make a big pivot into maybe their own fund or some other joint venture we could cooperate on. So, getting a 7-figure check from, a group that I really respected that was also making somewhat of a pivot, just given where we saw the industry and, the mortgage business was great, but most houses have a lot of equity now. The returns are not what they were, and we shared a lot of the same opinions on inflation, and you want to hold longer term. You want to borrow longer term debt and hedge against inflation, which I think multifamily is a great hedge. So that was really it solidified in me that I was on the right track, and my gut instincts of investing heavily in multifamily value add were correct, and that I had other groups with a lot of capital that I respect coming on board alongside me to put their money where their mouth is and say that, hey, we like this market as well, and we want to use you and your fund as a way to learn it.
Nice.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So Jack, with JKM, is there a humor story you can share? Something funny along the way?
Oh, there's constant. I mean, it feels like every conference, we go to, we're meeting interesting characters, and there's so many. A lot of them are maybe not PG-13 for a podcast. But I'll tell an entrepreneurial one from one of my foreclosure conferences, actually. Coming from New York, which is kind of a very tenant friendly and ownership friendly state, versus Texas. We were talking about in New York, it may take 4 years to foreclose on a property. And one of the foreclosure attorneys in Texas is like, heck, in Texas, we foreclose by lethal injection. So, there's always, like, every event I go to, there's another one-liner here and there. And I'm, as a fan of comedy, I love, I try to collect the one-liners to use when I can at events.
That's funny. we had a property in Atlanta that it was in Atlanta Metro. It was in a county that's, even though Georgia's tends to be a landlord friendly state, this particular county was horrendous in terms of prosecuting their evictions. And again, we don't want to see somebody lose their residence, but at the same point in time, a resident that lives in your apartments, it's a contract that they sign when they sign a lease. Contracts, we have to do our part to provide safe housing and a nice place to live. But at the same point in time, they have to do their part, which is to honor their contract and pay their rent. And evictions are going to happen anyway. It took forever to get somebody out in this particular county, and actually one of our investors in that particular property was an eviction court judge from a neighboring county, and she talked about how she could typically under a month and a half to close. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish we had you in this particular property, because it was taking us 4 months to get people out, even despite it was being a generally friendly state. So it was crazy. Yeah,
it is. And there's always unintended consequences. I mean, during the heights of COVID, where you couldn't, there's no foreclosures, no evictions. I mean, part of the reason housing prices and rent prices were inflating as well is because there was such a lack of inventory. So somebody pays one way or the other. A lot of it was coming out of certain landlords' pockets, but ultimately everyone else paid a little bit as well.
Yeah,
I don't know what the right answer was, but I think certain states, I've heard stories of people living for 2 or 3 years without paying. Luckily, the apartments that I'm involved in, and I'm sure yours in the in your markets, I think you were generally, I didn't really hear any horror stories. There was also a lot of COVID assistance where I think 94, 95, most of the collections were in the mid 90s. We really didn't see a drop off during COVID on collections, and really any of our investments 30 plus.
Yeah, same for us. We wound up having a few bad apples that just milked the system and took complete advantage. There's one particular guy who was working the entire time, but just decided to stop paying because he could. And and again, the whole again, to your point, I don't know what the right answer was. I mean, perhaps people did need help, and certainly the relief assistance programs were there. But we had a lot of people that were just refused to take advantage of them and even apply. And early on, it had to be resident driven until probably 2021, some point with the new tax law at that point, is only when it really became a little bit more something where the landlord could help drive it a little further. But anyway, so yeah, it's a tough situation.
Yeah, it did seem that well thought out. If you just affect one half of the equation, like you tell the people that you guys can quit paying rent and stay where you're at, but the landlords still have to pay the bondholders and the debt to the bank. I mean, it goes downstream to only affect one part of the equation. It doesn't seem like a really cohesive thought process on what your policy is going to be. But like I said, we got through it, and you learn lessons from it. But luckily, we were with the assistance and with our property management. Luckily, the same thing. We're in the 90s the entire time, so it was good as you can hope for during the situation.
Yeah. I think back to March, April 2020, and we're if I would have known back then that we're how it went, given everything that happened, it went probably better than I would have ever bet back then.
Right.
We'll see what happens with inflation and some of the things happening now, but certainly at least up till now, it went certainly better than I think most of us would have predicted in mid 2020.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, Jack, where are you today on your journey as you're growing JKM, and where are you now, and what's your goals for the future?
Sure. So we just closed Fund 1 to new investments. So we're now in the harvest period. We raised just under $10 million in about 16 months. And we're in 34 different properties across 12 different operators. When we originally launched the fund, we thought it was going to be, we set it up to be fully diverse. So multifamily, mobile storage, really the traditional middle market classes. And we ended up going 80% multifamily for Fund 1 just because late 2020 through 2021, we caught a good run. We had good operators, found great value add projects. And we're in the process. We just launched Fund 2, this week. So we're going to continue to deploy, probably a little more diverse than Fund 1, but with multifamily value add being the core asset class. So then spreading the remainder through mobile home, self-storage, maybe a little ground up construction. I do think there's a housing shortage. The only reason we won't do more ground up is, a lot of our investors want that mailbox money and want a preferred return every quarter. So there's only so much ground up you can do and still, pay out consistent quarterly returns. And just continue to grow the brand. I remember a lesson from graduate school I have an executive MBA from Kellogg, and they did a case study on dollar cost averaging. And regardless of where you think we are in the economy, using the example of 1929, if you put your money in the day before the crash in 1929, it would take you over 10 years, you would still be down 32%. But if over a 12-month period, you dollar cost averaged in, you would actually be up 32% in 10 years. So, the lesson I have for investors that are worried that, rates are going to go up, or this is the bubble of bubbles, you just have to be consistent and continue to deploy capital. And, over the course of 5 or 10 years, we're going to be just fine. And, if multi starts dropping over the next year, we'll be buying the dips and buying quality projects that we can increase the value. So as far as where I'm in my journey, we're just, this is my life business at this point. I don't see myself ever going back and getting a regular job, and just going to continue to continue to invest, continue to, help investors. I love this. So, I have constant conversations with investors. It's almost like a mini mastermind, as far as, especially tax time now, trying to figure out, do my investors have enough K1 losses? What are they expecting for this year? I love that consultant type approach, and just really trying to add value any way I can, whether it's investing with us, whether it's a referral. I've actually even referred, I'm not an oil and gas expert, but I know some oil and gas opportunities, and some of my investors that have high W-2 income, I've referred them to potentially an oil and gas type of deal because they could offset their active income. So sorry, I'm kind of, you could probably sense the passion. I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but it's, I'm in a great spot is the short answer at the end of it. I'm really happy with what I'm doing, and I'm excited about the future.
That's great. And it's great. Like I said, you can kind of tailor that to the individual investor. With some of the high income W-2, what is is it 90% or so you can write off on the oil and gas year one? And it's a high offset.
Yeah. It's close to that. Yeah. It's really 85 to 90 for sure. There are also select deals. If there's any sort of leverage on the equipment, there's certain select ones that can go more than 1-to-1. And, it actually offsets active income. The only other angle, and I was just talking with a CPA I'm in a mastermind with, and for those that have high W-2 income, if you have a spouse, if your spouse can qualify for a real estate professional, it doesn't matter how much you make. The moment you're filing jointly, you could be a brain surgeon making $3 million a year. If your spouse qualifies as a real estate professional and you have enough depreciation, you could write off as much of the income as you can get through depreciation. So, back to the whole point of, escaping a W-2, that's the other thing is, sometimes you don't even need to make the same money because the tax rules were written by business owners and rich people, and they're really set up for the entrepreneurs. So once you're on your own, you might be leaving a high base, but you remember you're losing 40 to 50% of that base in most cases. When you're looking to replace your income, sometimes you don't need to make the same amount to actually keep the same amount or more.
Yeah, one thing that people don't realize, and again, I can't remember if this was Kiyosaki, if it was maybe Tom Wheelwright or somebody that talked about this, and that is that we know that the tax law is massive, 20, 30, whatever it is, 1,000 pages of tax law, and only about 50 pages talk about tax collection. The rest of it talks about tax incentives. And why does the government create tax incentives? Because they want to incent behavior. They need companies to create jobs. They need companies to create, and folks like us to create housing and places to live and improve housing that's there. So that's why, it's not a keep the rich, help the rich get richer. It's to incent behavior, and that's what people just don't seem to understand. We need places to live. We need jobs. Not everybody's going to be an entrepreneur, but at some point in time, we've got to keep our society running with jobs and housing, right? So it's a huge part of the tax law.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just human nature. You're going to go, you're going to go where you're treated best. You're going to make the best deal you can for yourself. That's human nature. And that's just, you have to have those incentives.
Right.
Similar to, I relocated to Puerto Rico a few years ago. There's some amazing tax incentives here. And I would have never thought to move to Puerto Rico. And there's some people that are against the incentives, but, probably 10,000 people have moved here that never would have moved here. And, there's a fair amount of jobs created and just a lot of consumption.
Right.
Just buying a condo, buying a car, spending money at restaurants. And, the island had been losing population for many years, just of people relocating to the States. So, I think last year was the first year that the population had increased in maybe 10 or 15 years. And, granted, the hurricane in 2017 contributed to that as well. But, even before that, there was a flood of people leaving. And, I think the incentives have been great for the island. And, I love it here. I live a block from the beach in an island paradise, and barely see the snow. I went to Denver in February though, and it was went from 82 degrees here to 2 degrees in Denver, and it was it's a pretty rude awakening for.
Yeah.
Find the winter jackets again.
Yeah. Actually, I think you mentioned at one point Rochester before, because we had a friend who was relocating from Atlanta to Rochester, and she called up Land's End to buy winter coats, and they said, "Oh, wait, you can't buy winter coats. You have to make sure you're buying for the 0 degree weather, not for the 30 degree Atlanta weather." She's like, "Oh, no. We're moving to Rochester. We know we need 0 degree coats and outerwear." So
yeah,
it was pretty funny. So Jack, is there anything that you can share, anything that you perhaps personally, or maybe JKM does to try to give back to help others?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mentioned Puerto Rico, and there's a number of charities here through the Act 2022 Society that we donate, where goes to a number of organizations here locally in Puerto Rico. I also typically try to donate a little bit. This is actually more timely news right now. As you can see, this bald head here is not natural. I have alopecia, which is I don't know when this is going to come out, but we're a week off of that Will Smith and Chris Rock slap. So it's actually that same condition, I guess, that Jada Pinkett Smith has. So I've been to a number of conferences for the Alopecia Areata Association, and just something that's obviously close to home. And I'm pretty comfortable, and it's at this point. I save money on haircuts and stuff, but it's a cool organization. It provides a lot of support for those who have have this condition. And other than that, it's whatever, as friends have things come up or things like Ukraine. I mean, always kind of follow along with other friends' passions when things pop up. And I like to train and educate as well. I mean, to me, the biggest thing I could do more than actual writing checks is help other people along the entrepreneurial journey.
Right. Yeah, and that's why Bill and I do this. We do this podcast as an educational platform to help others learn and see possibilities. We also run a couple of monthly meetings for that purpose to give back to others, help educate them, and we actually also created a Park Capital Partners Foundation as a way to give back. But yeah, it's definitely something we very strongly believe in. We feel we've been very blessed and many opportunities, and folks gave us a lot of help along the way as we were getting going. So we wanted to really make sure we try to pay it forward, as they say, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Jack, you mentioned before, like some of the marketing and is how you're growing your business. Something you've recently implemented that's helped you achieve your goals?
Yeah, I think really just making the commitment to getting out there and doing shows like this. I try to at least get on one or two a month, and the one-to-many marketing at this point. I mean, there's only so many coffees you could have one-on-one with people. So it's really that commitment to just getting out there, and posting on social media and just making sure people are fully aware of what we're doing. It's amazing. I mean, 10 years ago, these were what I'd call country club deals, and you really had to, be a member, and it was that type of thing. And now, these types of things are available, and even none of us are spring chickens here. And even though it's great to see guys like us that you really didn't grow up with social media, and it's not always natural, but you have to do it. And the thing is, I knew better as well. Going back to my early days, I was stressing about spending less than $1,000 to mail postcards to, absentee landlord owners. And I remember when maybe we waited 6 months to do it. When we finally did it, we spent, I think, $684 to send 1,000 postcards out. And we probably made six figures in profits from buying a few houses and flipping houses. Yeah. So the return on marketing is incredible. Sometimes you might not always pick the right niche at first, but for anyone who's making the jump into having their own business, you have to market, you have to put yourself out there. You find the right channels, you're going to make a 5-10x profit on the investment in marketing, whether it's just your time or whether it's, at the right time and place. I mean, you can't be afraid to advertise, to get your message out there.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, and that's a beauty, I think, of a podcast. Like you said, 20 years ago, if you got on like a local business radio show, if anybody missed that 30-minute segment, it's just gone. This is like evergreen material. They can find this 2 years from now at 2 a.m, just be flipping through podcast. And well, that sounds interesting. I think I'll reach out and see what Jack's offering, or, it's great that way.
Yeah,
it's really
absolutely. And it's the network effect too. I mean, you might, it might be an investor. It might just be someone else who has a podcast as well. And, everyone has their own following, and, real estate's a team sport. Yeah, investing is a team sport. And, I think a rising tide raises all ships. So there's really, there's very little absolutely true competition, because you never know. One day, maybe you're bidding against someone for a property, but then maybe a year later they refer one that is not a fit for them, or maybe, one time you're a buyer, the next time you're a seller. So,
absolutely.
And it's also the abundance mindset in the fact that, look, money continues to grow. I mean, there isn't only one property to bid on. There's millions of properties to bid on, so you're going to lose, a bunch of deals, but at the same point in time, you're going to win other deals because there's other opportunities constantly out there. So, yeah.
And we say this probably, I don't know, maybe not every episode, but quite a bit, that, even though we're in multifamily, we're not in the real estate business, we're in the relationship business. Just to your point, Jack, that, that's it's all it's about between brokers, investors, other third-party vendors that we use in the business. It is a team sport, and that's what makes it possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Jack, what advice would you give somebody who's considering making a path change?
I think it's you've got to, if you really don't be afraid is the main point is, if assuming you really want it. And I think those who really want it know they really want it. I think it's pretty black and white there. There's those that have the that absolutely want the comfort and don't want the stress of being an entrepreneur, and there's those that have the itch. And don't let fear or anxiety stop you from doing it. And as far as the first steps to get there is just putting yourself out there and just consuming information, going to meetups, listening to podcasts, getting on the forums, whether it's Bigger Pockets or, there's 20 or, there's probably hundreds of Facebook groups that people are chatting, by getting yourself in the network, the opportunities will present themselves, whether it's going out on your own, fully on your own, or just partnering with someone who's further along that needs a partner, needs a co-founder, needs help. And there's room in entrepreneurship for every personality type as well. Part of the coaching we have is doing a thing called the predictive index where, and there's tons of personality profiles, but, there's the profile that's the true salesperson, like a maverick. There's the captain. And then there's other ones that are more analytical. I know plenty of good entrepreneurs that are more introverted. There's room, every entrepreneur needs a good COO and needs a good, good accounting person behind the scenes too. So you don't have to be, this crazy salesperson, type A entrepreneur at all times. I know plenty of meticulous, detail-oriented people who have been very successful as well. You just need to find the right niche and and the right partners to work with.
Yeah. It's everybody can't be a Grant Cardone and post 200 times a day on your channels. It's a personality type, which, good for him. He uses it very well, but like I said, it's a wide range of people that, can be very successful. That, other ones you like, Sam Zell, that's, legendary. And you hardly see anything social. It's a different generation also, but he just behind the scene works and has great results out of it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Jack, what's the best way for our listeners to be able to reach you and find out more about what you're doing?
Sure. So we're on all the major social media platforms. It's jkminvestments.com. That's JKAM investments.com. And I'm on LinkedIn. We have LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. No TikTok yet. I'm still working on my dance video, but we're on all the major platforms. And we have an ebook. We just put out our 2022 kind of market thesis. So that's available if you sign up for our newsletter. And just reach out on whatever your platform of choice is.
Excellent. And we'll link those down below in the show notes. Well, Jack, we really want to thank you for being on the Road Less Traveled show today. Really enjoyed the conversation, and we wish you continued success.
Great. Really appreciate you guys having me. Look forward to staying in touch.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you for being on, Jack. We really appreciate it. We'd also like to thank our listeners for tuning in. Please continue to give us a 5-star rating so we can bring you more great content like Jack Krupey on today's show. We'd also like to thank Park Capital Partners that sponsors this show. Please certainly reach out and say hello. We'd like to remind everybody that we have the Park Capital Partners Value Add Fund, which is now available to take in investments. It is a 506c fund that's open, and we actually just announced an acquisition that is part of that fund. So please reach out and say hello. And then finally, we as well have the Park Capital Partners Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. And when investors invest with us, Park Capital Partners will make a donation to honor that investor to a charity of one of their 15 of their choice, and we have 15 charities to choose from. So please say hello, and thanks for joining, folks. We really appreciate it. And remember, folks, the road less traveled may be calling you. We recommend that you listen and take action. Thanks for joining.